Hello, welcome to This Is My Architecture. Today I'm joined by Andrew from Australia Post. Welcome, Andrew.
Thanks for having me.
Now, we all know Australia Post delivers the mail, but you're also doing a lot of work in the digital realm these days.
Yeah, so at Australia Post we've been including more serverless architecture in the products and services that we develop. So it's pretty cutting edge sort of stuff that we're doing. The typical sort of architecture is your three-tiered one, but we're moving more towards this cutting edge sort of serverless side of things on one hand. But on the other hand, we've got to make sure that we keep the high levels of security that we are trusted with every day. You know, we receive a lot of information from Australian people. We've got to make sure that's secure. So that causes a little bit of friction, and generally out of friction you have innovation, and that's what we've done today is really work there.
And you've done a lot of work recently around things like digital identity and other verification services, which means that you need to move quickly. So maybe tell us about this deployment pipeline you've created to dovetail into this new way of doing things.
Yeah, that's right. So essentially what we've built is an automated way to deploy serverless applications securely. So we have a number of products at Australia Post now that require high levels of security. So we just released, for example, digital ID. We've got secure document delivery. We've got a number of other applications like employee checks to make sure that, you know, and all those things need to be secured quite well. But on the other hand, we want to do it quickly, as you said. So essentially what we have is it's kind of basically a CI/CD pipeline that will deploy applications in a secure fashion. There's some nice little bits in there that I'll take you through.
Step us through it.
Yeah, so essentially what happens first is we have code artifacts that are coming out of our build system. So we have two artifacts, two types basically. We've got infrastructure, which describes all of the things like, you know, what the API gateway is doing, how it's talking to lambdas, what lambdas can do, whether they can talk to S3 buckets or DynamoDB tables, all that protocol.
All the
plumbing is all within this one sort of descriptor, essentially, which is basically CloudFormation, which we'll talk about in a second. And then we have the business logic, which is essentially the code itself that sits inside those lambdas. So those two things get popped into an S3 bucket from our build system, and from there we use a role and permissions lambda. So that lambda was developed with AWS Services in Melbourne alongside Australia Post, so we collaborated on that. And what it does is it goes and checks all of the permissions that we've defined within that those two artifacts.
So that does the verification and validation.
Correct.
That what we're deploying is to policy, to security requirements.
That's right, yeah, and if there's a violation of it, we're notified. You know, so for example, it may be somewhere where a particular developer is trying to get write access to a database that perhaps they shouldn't. That'll notify us and tell us, look, you know, there's something here you need to fix, or things like that. So basically from there it'll invoke a code build, and that will promote both of those artifacts into a promotion bucket.
So you're going from there to there, and then
over to there. That's right. Yeah, and this is kind of like a director. You can sort of think of it that way. So essentially what happens is we have all the versioned artifacts in here, which is great, so we can always go back to any version we want to and roll back. And that then gets promoted to this promotion bucket. Inside the promotion bucket, essentially what happens is we have another deployment lambda, and it's the one that's responsible for invoking the CloudFormation. So from here we take those two artifacts, we run it through actually something called the AWS code pipeline, which sets up all of the stacks ready for deployment, and then goes and deploys into the environments, whether it's dev or test or anything like that.
So by using CloudFormation, you've got this really repeatable process that you can do in all the different environments, and it's the same.
Exactly, and it's done within minutes. You know, so previously it took quite a while to do that.
Yeah. So I mean, you're talking about deploying in minutes, which is great. As a comparison, what would it used to have taken to go through?
Yeah. So you can imagine the typical sort of corporation. It's very siloed, and you have, you know, teams looking after particular things. What we're doing at Australia Post is really bringing together people from individual teams into the one sort of team, you know what I mean, and having the DevOps and security and all those things within the one place so that we can be really agile. So what we've done is we've really reduced that amount of time from weeks really, where particular teams may be backed up with
waiting on a critical path,
waiting on a particular deployment or a particular service to be done for them. It might be just one line in a database, but you're in a queue, so you've got to wait for it. But we've brought those people into the team. They're focused just for us, and now that we've got this automated pipeline, it's moved from literally weeks down to minutes, which is
so you can deliver as often as you want now.
Whenever we want to, we just press the button and off it goes.
And you're just as secure, if not more secure, because you've got all the checking going.
Exactly, and those guys that were there, spending all that time doing entries in databases are now enhancing things like, roles and permissions. They're coding for us. They're
making it better rather than just answering questions
and maintaining it. They're not putting out fires anymore.
Yeah.
They're actually, doing constructive good work.
Sensational. Andrew, thank you so much for sharing that with us today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And thanks for watching. This is My Architecture.